I remember exactly how it all began, how my life took that sudden, sharp turn. The day started like any other Monday. If Mondays could talk, they'd probably be screaming about how much they hate themselves. I had managed to wriggle out of bed at 7, showered, drank a coffee that was more sugar than caffeine, and tidied up my half of the apartment we still shared. Who would have guessed that by 9 o'clock, my entire life would fracture along a line I'd only vaguely suspected was coming? We'd been together for 3 years, and the last 6 months were odd. I'd noticed the late night texting, the sudden breathless excitement whenever Roderick's phone buzzed, the hushed phone calls taken in our closet. At first, I thought maybe he was planning a surprise for me. You know how sometimes you actually want to believe that the person you share a bed with has your best interests at heart? But soon enough, I realized the surprise was all right, just not for me. He'd found someone else, some corporate ladder climber, from what I gleaned. I kept picking up stray tidbits. The name Alyssa popping up more frequently, the evasion in his tone whenever I asked if something was wrong. The final straw was when I discovered a conversation on his phone. He'd left it unlocked, ironically, because he was so eager to rush out the door. I'll break it off soon, don't worry. She's basically broke. No big deal, but I gotta bounce. That was the beginning of the end. Or at least, it should have been. But I didn't say anything. My intuition told me to wait, to keep quiet. Something bigger was brewing, and I realized I needed time to collect myself, to prepare my next moves. I was disappointed, but not paralyzed by heartbreak. We all like to imagine love is forever, but I'm a realist at my core. Roderick always loved a spectacle. If he was going to do this, then he was going to do it with all the stage lights on him. I knew something more humiliating, some ta-da moment, was imminent. I didn't expect it to come via a single, smug text message at 9:07 a.m. Exactly. The phone flashed. We're over. No more dead weight. You can stay in the apartment until the end of the month. There was no greeting or goodbye, only a parting shot about how he needed to upgrade to someone with ambition and money, followed by a gleeful link to his own tweet. Upgrade, it said, with a winking emoji. Attached was a filter-heavy photo of him in a champagne booth next to a woman with a severe face and hair so sleek it could reflect light better than any mirror I'd seen. The caption read, "When you realize your worth, you stop settling." Of course, that was the tweet that went viral, because apparently the internet loves a good rags and riches narrative, even if it's a total fabrication. The replies and shares ballooned by the hour. There were so many comments about how savage he was to dump the broke girlfriend, how savage it was to announce it like that, how savage it was to level up in real time. Funny how no one questioned his side of the story. For a moment I thought, should I clap back? But I decided it wasn't worth my energy. Besides, if Roderick wanted to paint me as broke, I had no problem letting the world think that. Because what he never realized, what he never cared to realize, was that I'd been tucking money away for months. It had started out as a safety net, just an extra 100 here or there, in case my suspicions about Roderick panned out. Gradually, that turned into consultation calls with a lawyer, a friend of my sister's, who owed her a favor, and serious job hunting. I'd felt stifled for too long. I'd grown so used to Roderick mocking me for my little marketing hustle that I nearly forgot I had actual talent. I had built a small portfolio of freelance clients. I made more than he realized. And I'd been quietly offered a full-time position with a big branding agency, set to begin in 2 weeks. I'd also quietly removed my name from the lease of our apartment a month earlier, an update Roderick had not bothered to notice, busy as he was with his new, ambitious fling. So, when I got that final text on Monday, I was oddly calm. I was prepared. I texted him back, purely to tie up loose ends. Sure thing. I'll be out of your hair soon. Best of luck. Short and sweet. I didn't let him see the rage, or the heartbreak, or the sense of betrayal that had simmered in me for weeks. My reply was about as bland as someone reminding you to buy milk. Roderick must have felt robbed of the meltdown he was expecting, because he responded back almost immediately with a slew of messages that read like desperate attempts to get me to beg him to stay. He ranted about how he was moving up in the world, how I would regret this, and how I'd never find anyone half as important as him. I read them calmly, then I turned off my phone and placed it face down on my kitchen counter. If he thought I was going to be a doormat, he was mistaken. And that was that. I started packing that evening. I had some cardboard boxes left over in storage from when we first moved in. Memories swirl in cardboard boxes. You see old pictures, old souvenirs, little trinkets that meant something once. Each time I opened a drawer, I found something that used to make me so happy. Our postcards from our first trip together, the silly fridge magnets from our anniversary. Funny, how it only took a short text to kill the sentiment behind them. But I didn't cry. I refused to let his callousness overshadow my next steps. The pity for myself got smaller and smaller with each item I packed away. The only tears I recall shedding were from laughing so hard at the comments under his viral tweet. "He sure told that gold digger," someone wrote, ironically painting me as the gold digger. Another user replied, "No more leeches. Good for you, King." I felt almost insulted on behalf of actual gold diggers, because I definitely wasn't living off Roderick. If anything, he'd drained my finances with his unnecessary spending. He was the one who always needed bailing out of some random half-baked investment scheme, some new endeavor that ate away at his credit score, and, by extension, our rent money. He'd even once tried to get me to co-sign a loan for a business opportunity that turned out to be a get-rich-quick fiasco. In retrospect, I'm grateful I had the sense to refuse. That was probably the first moment I realized he didn't just have illusions of grandeur, He was dangerously incompetent with money. The day after his announcement, I spent my lunch break finalizing the new job paperwork and confirming my soon-to-be move-in date for a studio apartment across town. The landlord, Mr. Weston, was a genial man with slightly crooked glasses who seemed to want to let me rent the place the second I told him I worked in branding. He wanted me to help him freshen up his property listings. "Maybe we can trade a discount for your marketing tips," he joked, with a laugh so hearty it nearly rattled the front window. I liked him immediately. That evening, as I was about to pack up the rest of my belongings, I heard keys rattling at the front door. Roderick stomped in, though he nearly tripped over one of my half-packed boxes. The look of shock on his face at the sight of my efficient packing was priceless. "Oh," he said, brow furrowed. You're really leaving?" I'd expected him to be euphoric about it, but the reality of my calm acceptance seemed to unnerve him. "Yes," I answered simply. "I'll be out by the end of the week." He opened his mouth, and for a moment I thought he might apologize, but instead he just scoffed. "Well, you took that well. Good for you." I raised an eyebrow, then shrugged. "I never wanted to fight. I figured you'd just want me gone, right?" He hesitated, then forced a tight grin. "Right," he said. "That's exactly what I want. I'm going to be traveling soon anyway. Alyssa and I have some big trips lined up. Business class, of course." Then he strode into the bedroom as if to emphasize how little he cared. The door slammed shut. I exhaled. That was the last real conversation we had in that apartment. Over the next few days, he disappeared. I'd see glimpses of him rushing in and out, still in that champagne lifestyle bubble that he believed was within reach. Every once in a while, I'd catch him filming some kind of social media story, talking about how real winners never settle, presumably to an audience he was trying to impress. I made my best effort to remain invisible. I slept on the pull-out couch, all my possessions in taped boxes stacked near the door. Finally, the day came. I loaded the last box into a rented van. My heart pounded harder than I expected as I turned the key in the ignition and pulled away from that place I'd called home. I drove straight to my new studio and met Mr. Weston with a handshake and a deposit check. The relief of being free from Roderick's orbit was immediate, and I was grateful that I'd had the forethought to sever our joint accounts. I closed every shared credit card the week before. He never noticed. Overconfidence does that to people. They assume the world revolves around them, so they rarely look closely at details that inconvenience their illusions. The next day, as if fate had decided to confirm that I'd done the right thing, a friend of mine, Keisha, sent me a screenshot of Roderick's newest tweets. They were basically bragging about how this was the best decision of my life, and how he was now free to be the man he was destined to be. He posted an embarrassingly triumphant selfie with Alyssa, tagging it #upgrade once again. I half laughed, half rolled my eyes. If I was the old me, I might have felt a sting of pain at that moment, but the new me just smirked. "He has no idea what's coming," I murmured to the empty studio. A week later, I officially began my new job at the branding agency. My boss, Marcia, was a dynamic woman with a penchant for directness and a closet full of impeccable suits. She welcomed me with a warmth that instantly made me feel at home. On my second day, she pulled me aside and said, "I've heard nothing but good things about your freelance work. I'd like to give you a bigger role in shaping our next campaign for a high-end lounge in town." My eyes widened at the opportunity. That was exactly the break I needed. I threw myself into the job, poured my creativity into the campaign. I surprised even myself with how quickly I found my footing. Meanwhile, Roderick's social media presence had become a carnival of self-congratulation. He posted pictures from exclusive events, often using borrowed cars or standing in front of expensive mansions that definitely weren't his. Those who knew him well suspected it was all a facade, but the random onlooker just saw the glitz, retweeted with starry eyes, and moved on. Then, suddenly, about 3 weeks after I'd moved out, the tide shifted. It started with a rumor that Roderick had defaulted on a loan for an extravagant trip to Dubai. Another rumor said he'd been gambling away funds he didn't actually have. Then, a viral video erupted. A shaky phone recording of him in a crowded nightclub, apparently some after-party for local entrepreneurs, where he was seen tugging on a friend's sleeve, begging for a loan. The context was humiliating. The music in the background was loud, but it was unmistakably Roderick's voice whining about how he'd invested too much in crypto or something and needed just a few thousand, man. I'm good for it. In typical internet fashion, people latched onto this contradictory image. The man who had spent weeks flaunting his so-called wealth was now literally begging for money in a dark corner of a club. The video shot up in views, overshadowing his old number upgrade tweet with a fresh wave of mocking comments. "Oh, so this is the guy who dumped his broke girlfriend? LMAU. Guess that number upgrade was in the negative. Somebody do a wellness check on him, or better yet, a bank account check." I watched it unfold in real time with a mixture of shock, secondhand embarrassment, and a twinge of satisfaction. I'll be honest. I did not feel sorry for him. This was exactly the brand of humiliating meltdown that someone so desperate for appearance was bound to encounter. As soon as the video surfaced, Roderick tried to do damage control. He posted statements about how the video was out of context, how he was actually just picking up some money from a friend, how everyone else was hating on my hustle. He insisted he was liquid in other investments. No one bought it. The tweet's replies seethed with sarcasm. Of course, all of this shattered Alyssa's illusions as well. Rumor had it she distanced herself the moment it became clear Roderick wasn't a wealthy entrepreneur, but a struggling wannabe. He'd apparently tried to cling to her, to salvage the relationship, but she was nowhere to be found. Then, in a final act of humiliation, Roderick deactivated his social media profiles. All of them. The once prolific presence was gone overnight. The mocking commentary turned to scattered jokes about how upgrade downgraded so fast he disappeared, or the hustle was never real, folks. By the end of the week, it was old news in the fast-paced world of online gossip. But for me, and the people who knew him, this was a permanent stain on his reputation. I never had to say a word. The universe had done the talking for me. While all this drama peaked, I was quietly thriving. The lounge campaign I worked on became a success story for my new agency. Word of mouth spread quickly, and 2 more clients lined up, requesting me by name. I was so swamped with creative work, design briefs, and marketing pitches that I barely had time to sleep, let alone post updates on the fiasco that was Roderick's downfall. But karma has a sense of humor. About a month later, I was at a networking event downtown. It was at a chic rooftop bar, a place with panoramic views of city lights, open only to business owners and marketing professionals. Marcia had insisted I attend. "This is your chance to shine. Meet new clients, connect with potential partners," she'd said. I put on my best blazer, paired it with a pair of heels that made me feel unstoppable, and walked in armed with a stack of business cards. Halfway through the event, I noticed a familiar figure hunched over by the bar, Roderick. He looked disheveled in a wrinkled shirt and slacks that didn't quite fit. The confident posture he once exuded was missing. He was swirling a drink, staring into the amber liquid as if it held answers he desperately needed. To be honest, I almost didn't recognize him. But he recognized me. His gaze flitted toward me and then darted away. I thought he might ignore me, and that would have been fine, maybe even preferable. But after about 10 minutes, he gathered the courage to shuffle over, wearing an awkward half-smile. "Hey," he said quietly. I nodded, remaining composed. "Hello." He cleared his throat. I heard you're doing really well at that agency." "Yes," I replied simply. No need to elaborate. The event was brimming with potential clients, and I wanted to get back to networking, but he lingered, as if searching for the right words. "Listen, I wanted to say I'm sorry," he finally muttered. "I was a jerk. The tweets? The bragging?" He trailed off, obviously ashamed. I looked at him, remembering that day I found those incriminating messages, recalling the tone of that savage text that ended our relationship. It felt like a lifetime ago. "You did what you had to do," I said calmly. "We're different people now." He nodded, blinking. Right. A long pause. "I lost everything, you know. That big break I thought I had turned out to be a scam. Alyssa cut ties with me as soon as she found out I was in debt. I'm sorry." There was a time I might have fantasized about this moment. Roderick apologizing, me strutting off in defiance, delivering some grand monologue about how he made his bed, and now he can lie in it. But in that instant, I realized I didn't need any of that. My success was the revenge. The fact that I was here, thriving, while he was scraping the bottom of a glass, was enough. I gave him a small smile, more pity than warmth. "I hope you get back on your feet," I said, and I meant it. There's no point in carrying bitterness when you've already won. He stared at me, lips parted as if searching for a sign of hatred or scorn, but I gave him none. With a final nod, I turned and walked away, the heels I wore clicking against the polished floor. My confidence soared as I returned to chatting with a potential client who ended up signing a contract the next day, a deal that came with a hefty commission. When I got home to my cozy little studio that night, I sat on the plush rug by my bed, letting the whole evening replay in my mind. I felt a strange sense of closure. Not the triumphant glee that some might expect, but something softer, contentment. I'd survived his betrayal, and not just survived. I'd upgraded myself. I had a new job, a new place, and a renewed sense of self-worth. I no longer questioned whether I was broke or unambitious, or any of those terms he'd casually thrown at me in his self-absorbed haze. The truth had shone through in the end. Months passed. Word reached me that Roderick's attempts to rebuild his online image had flopped. 1 or 2 acquaintances said they bumped into him at events, still trying to peddle some new investment. Most folks wouldn't trust him now, not after that viral fiasco of him begging for a loan. The world had a short memory, but not that short. He burned too many bridges when he let his arrogance run rampant. Meanwhile, I thrived. My marketing prowess led to promotions and pay raises. I expanded my freelance brand on the side, building a reputation as the go-to consultant for boutique businesses. My social life flourished, too, now that I was no longer tiptoeing around Roderick's moods. I even started dating again, casually, with no rush. Life felt expansive, full of possibility. I often think back to that moment he declared he was leveling up by ditching me. I think about how it catapulted me forward in my own life. Ironically, he did me a favor. I'd been comfortable, complacent even, stuck in a relationship that clearly wasn't giving me the respect I deserved. His betrayal forced me to reevaluate everything, to seize the opportunities that had been waiting. And I can't deny the poetic justice in how everything turned out. The final image I have of Roderick is at that bar, shoulders slumped, eyes full of regret. Perhaps he finally realized you don't build success by running from your problems. Perhaps he understood too late that, broke or not, I had far more drive and grit than he ever credited me for. As for me, I never needed to post a single snarky tweet or gotcha moment. My victory was simply living my best life while his illusions collapsed around him. And that's all the revenge I ever needed.